We'll try and time this out and base it upon a motion at 40 miles per hour. So taking about that center location and maybe a little bit more north of northeast. Here's a rough idea of the timing. Montpelier in St. Helena Parish at 7:32, Hillsdale at 7:39, Kendron 7:42, then Amite at around 7:43. So you do have time in Amite to get into that and find a safe space in your home, or if you need to get into another home, again, sturdy structure. The reports that we've gotten from that storm in the village of Tangipahoa, that 2 mobile homes were flipped over. So you don't want to be in a mobile home during these type of storms. Would continue past Amite toward Hood Memorial Hospital, Roseland at about 7:46, Interstate Christian School 7:47, and about 7:51 toward Fluker. That again is assuming it continues along that path. Now if it does deviate a little bit, the times and the locations could change, as well as the possibility that the tornado weakens as well. But that would be very optimistic with that happening. We have already seen that these storms stay on the ground, at least in terms of the rotation, for a pretty long duration. And this is basically in the same area that we saw the earlier two earlier warnings than the one that was confirmed, but also the area that the Storm Prediction Center kind of highlighted as maybe a little bit more of a focus through the 8 o'clock hour of continued tornadic development. This part of the North Shore kind of springboarding into southwestern Mississippi as a higher likelihood of these tornadic storms continuing. And sure enough, we have another storm that is showing signs of rotation. Now, as we watch that storm, in terms of the rotation, we will wait and see if that holds together. Right now, where the storm is does appear to be in a fairly rural and unpopulated area. So giving you a closer look at some of the highways, LA 43, this is north now of LA 442 in Livingston, will eventually and fairly soon cross the parish line into St. Helena, taking it very likely around Montpelier. So LA 43, here's LA 16 to give you a rough idea of the highways and intersections of where this tornado will continue moving through. Eventually, it will then cross I-55 once it's in Tangipahoa Parish, and then Highway 51. Again, this is keeping it north of Independence. I had chatting online with a viewer that was in Ponchatoula. He said, yeah, my alarm is going off every time these warnings are issued, and sure enough, they usually do notify the entire parish. But for southern Tangi, this is not an issue for you. It really, as far as from Independence south, this is not an issue for you. It's from really more Amite north that this is more of a concern. The same areas we've been tracking these tornadic storms over the last couple of hours or so. So the rotation that we're still showing up on the last several passes of the radar scan is still showing up that rotation within the storm. We can also go to our shear marker to see if that is indicating that wind shear, you know, it's kind of a bullseye right in that spot that I was talking. And again, following that trajectory, and what we can do is we can kind of go back in time a little bit here to see where this has been tracking. And again, maybe a little bit more northeast, which would keep it maybe, if it again follows along this projection, might be a little bit more to the right of due center of this polygon, the warned area. So if that were to be the case and it were to continue kind of along this trajectory, it may be that it avoids Independence altogether. At Amite, it could avoid altogether. Now, you are still very much in the heart of this warning, but just to kind of project this out a little bit, it may be that it stays more to your north, but affecting the village of Tangipahoa, where we currently have a crew and a lot of folks are on the scene of that tornado damage from earlier. Yeah, their weather service, technical terms, it's kind of cycling. We're seeing the storm itself kind of weaken, but then it begins to strengthen a bit as an updraft kind of keeps it healthy. So they're just going through some of the technical terms as to what they're expecting, that while it is showing at the moment signs of kind of falling apart, which when you look at the velocity doesn't really appear to be nearly as impressive right now, but it may be that the storm is cycling. So they're not anticipating that this is a weakening trend right now. They're anticipating that this is kind of a just part of its normal cycle, that it will weaken and then start to re-intensify. And the idea is that as it crosses now into St. Helena Parish, it will start to re-intensify, taking it toward Amite. So let's kind of scan the radar up a little bit more in that direction to show you the areas further north into Tangipahoa that would then be affected by this. And again, indicating that the storm is moving at about 40 miles an hour. And I'm going to take it a little bit maybe more north of due northeast, just to get maybe a rough idea of some of the timing. And again, the timing and the locations will change based on where the tornado is going. So Georgeville at about 7:30, so in about 2 minutes. Woodland School at 7:40, so another 12 minutes or so. Kendra, then still Amy, you're still within our even highlighted area at about 7:43. So again, you have a little bit of time left, but you want to make sure that you know where that tornado safe space is in your home. Hood Memorial Hospital at 7:43, Roseland at 7:45, and then beyond, we'll see if that couplet continues to show up in terms of the rotation within this thunderstorm. As I said, we do have a crew on the ground in the village of Tangipahoa. If at any point we're able to speak with them, that would be great, just to kind of also give them the heads up of what may be moving in their direction. What we've been watching, though, on radar is that these kind of individual cells themselves have been showing that sign of rotation. And for the most part, it has been kind of a jumping off point, at least since about 5 o'clock, in kind of eastern St. Helena, Livingston, northern Tangipahoa Parish, and then a jumping off point as these storms continue into southwestern Mississippi. And then they do continue to show signs of developing tornadoes even there as well. So far, the last couple of hours, this really more or less has been the area of focus for these tornadic storms. That may shift a little bit farther north. It may continue into southeast Louisiana as we head into the late night or the latter evening and nighttime hours. I'm going to widen out our radar just to show you again, we are still, until this line, which is now moving into, say, the western Florida parishes, this is the front itself. So it's already past Lake Charles, just about to Lafayette now, and moving into the western Florida parishes, the far western, the Felicianas, the far western Florida parishes. So as this line continues gradually west, the threat of severe weather is gone, but really we have not seen that line yet in our viewing area. Probably won't be really until after about 9 to 10 o'clock. That's when we should start to see more of our western parishes begin to see the line moving in, and then once it is passed, then the threat for severe weather for you is over. May still have some lingering rainfall even behind it, but the threat of severe weather for you would be gone. That line, that kind of clearing line, has not yet approached our viewing area, so we still have several hours to go until that happens. So to reiterate, if you're just joining us, we do have a new tornado warning that is in effect. I'm going to switch back over to the velocities here. Now it looks like it is over Montpelier. So for Montpelier, you need to be in that tornado safe space. The storm itself is moving at about 40 miles an hour. So here it is at Montpelier. It will continue through St. Helena, then eventually crossing into northwestern Tangipahoa Parish and taking it basically on a trajectory that would, if it does hold up, would place it right over the village of Tangipahoa, where the earlier tornado had touched down. So a lot of crews, a lot of folks outside. If you know someone that is in that area, if you know emergency management folks, police, fire, EMS, anyone that has gone out there to assist the damage that had already occurred earlier, get them the notification that they would need to seek shelter very, very soon. They do have a little bit of time left before that tornado starts to threaten, but give them that heads up that they may need to be getting away from there or getting into that tornado safe space if they have that availability. The better bet would be just to kind of hit the highways and start heading away once it starts to approach. Don't do that yet. Again, these storms can change trajectory, and we have seen them do crazier things as far as kind of following along a forecasted path. They veer one way or the other, and we could see other communities maybe being more impacted than Tangipahoa, than the village of Tangipahoa. But that's kind of in the long term where the storm does look like it'll be continuing. Just looking at the velocities, this rotation on radar is what we're looking at to determine that there may be a tornado on the ground. So this is LA 16 here. LA 40, it looks like it is right over LA 40, just south of 16 as that tornado continues. Each and every pass of the radar, and when we get that new image into the radar, it keeps showing up. That little couplet is not letting go. So it does look like that there is a tornado on the ground, and something that will need to be taken very seriously. Again, I'm going to switch over and look at the what can be very confusing to folks to see if there's any kind of debris that is being lifted aloft. And you know, the rural areas, you're really not going to see much of anything. Nothing really jumping out at the moment as far as any kind of debris aloft. But it would be kind of on the more southern end of this cell of very intense rainfall. So as I've said many, many times, when folks think you're going to see this coming, you're going to hear it, you're going to have plenty of advanced warning because you'll see it heading your way. Consider that the tornado right around Montpelier is at the southern end of what is a very intense rain cell with lightning, thunderstorm. So if you are kind of downstream of it, or upstream, I should say, and as this is headed your way, you're going to have nothing but intense rain, then a tornado. So you are not going to see, nor will you hear this coming. That's why we are giving you the heads up within that projected track of the tornado. You need to be in that tornado safe space, if not now, almost immediately. Again, Amite would be under the gun, Roseland, Fluker, areas north of Amite along 55, 51, up toward then the village of Tangipahoa. If it were to continue along that path, could take it as well over Kentwood. Basically, the same areas we had been tracking that earlier tornado just a couple of hours ago. So once again, these folks are under the gun of a potential tornado. I don't know if we have anyone in our control room that if we can get word, I don't know if our own Whitney Miller is able to speak with us from Tangipahoa, but she is under the gun right now of that tornado. And again, with the damage that we had heard reported of what I believe is a gas station, as well as 2 mobile homes, guarantee a lot of the folks in that community are already out trying to help those folks out. You've got another tornado headed your way. You need to be in that tornado safe space, or you need to get away. A lot of folks think I'll just get in my car and drive away. Well, not too many options for leaving. You probably don't want to go north, as that's where it's going, and you don't want to go south because that places you in the path. So just kind of hold steady for right now until maybe this storm would be great. Best option would be that this little couplet starts to weaken and we start to see maybe a weakening of that storm. But so far, that has not been the case with this potential tornado. So again, just kind of giving you an idea of where it is, about to cross the parish line now again from St. Helena and just to the east of Montpelier, and will continue toward Amite. So this is the, at least near future forecast of where the storm, the near forecasted track of the tornado, of where it's going to go, and Amite yet again under the gun. Now, okay, yeah, and Weather Service, again, I apologize when I kind of stop here. I'm just reading from what the chat is from the Weather Service. Still no indications of a we'll call it a TDS, a tornado debris signature, as I was showing you earlier. Still not really showing up. Weather Service, they've got kind of a quad monitor going where they're looking at the reflectivity, the velocities, they're looking at debris, they're looking at everything all at once. And so they're able to see these things kind of in real time while I need to jump from screen to screen. They're looking at all of these at once. So they are on top of this and will note of any changes one way or the other of this potential tornado on the ground at the moment. Looks like they're continuing, and just to see if there is any new information on this tornado warning for Livingston Parish, folks, there it has been canceled, continues for St. Helena, and continues for Tangipahoa. Nothing has really changed. The motion of the storm still looks to be at about northeast 40 miles an hour. It is near Amite right now. So again, for Amite, this is the time. This is when you want to be in that centrally located first floor room that is as far away from any windows and exterior walls as you can get. It may be a hallway, it may be a bathroom, a closet, a pantry, just somewhere as far away from certainly windows, and if at all possible as well, any exterior walls. And as we saw from Tangipahoa, you don't want to be in a mobile home. This is when you need to be in a secure structure. But right now, that time for trying to get into another structure is just about gone, because this tornado is just about on your doorstep, or really I should say it is on your doorstep and just about getting ready to move over Amite. So to give you an idea, again, here is LA 16. It looks like the tornado may be right over or perhaps just to the north now of LA LA 16. So continuing along, it would take it up toward Roseland. So it is still right now west of I-55, but it would be moving over Roseland. If it continues along that path, may keep it north of Amite and more Roseland, the community of Roseland. But if it were to you know, veer off a little bit more due northeast, then it would take it more so over Amite. We'll kind of see in relation to LA 16 what the next frame does of the couplet. If it continues moving more of a northeast or more due northeast, we'll kind of see what that couplet looks like in relation to LA 16. Here's LA 1054. So just again to give you a rough idea of where it is. For the most part, it had been over more rural and wooded areas in both St. Helena, as it was north of the town of Livingston, and Livingston itself. And then once it moved into St. Helena, now getting ready to cross the parish line into Tangi, taking it toward Roseland and Amite. And we'll continue to see if it ventures a little bit farther north along that line. So to, again, just update as the storm itself is moving and tracking this out. Again, maybe a little bit more northeast than east. Here's a rough idea of where it'll be in the next couple of minutes. 7:41, so the next 2 minutes to Gordon Richardson Christian Academy. Roseland at 7:46. So right now, based on the trajectory, it may keep it a little bit more north of Amite. So again, as this new information comes in every couple of minutes, we tend to want to recalibrate our little forecast cone here. Speaking of forecast cones, and kind of recalibrate it to get a better idea of where and when the tornado would be arriving at various communities and various spots. We do have our own Whitney Miller on the phone with us. Whitney, you're in the village of Tangipahoa. What are you seeing there right now?
Yeah, so we just exited 440, and we were right near the Big Boss gas station that had got hit in that earlier severe weather, and the police are out there, firefighters are out there, and there are a line of cars of folks trying to assist with that. And then I'm watching you talk about how there is another possible tornado headed this way. So there are a lot of people outside right now trying to assist, and we have actually left that area so that we can drive north and get out of this cone, because we don't want to be caught in that.
Yeah, I agree. You'd probably be, you know, if you were able to kind of notify all of these people that are outside of what is headed their way to make sure that they know, you know,
we told them.
Okay, good. Based on the trajectory of where this storm, I don't know if you can see me right now as you're moving, but based on the path of the tornado, you'd probably be safer going up to Kentwood, as it looks like it may avoid Kentwood, just based on that right now. But you certainly wouldn't want to be going south, as you'd be going more so into the path of the possible tornado, which still is showing up on radar. Okay, good. So you're headed north.
We are headed north. We did see, though, that the Big Boss gas station was destroyed from that weather. And there was a fire department from a neighboring town that came and brought a special unit trailer with them. And I saw them trying to unload that and get started with help over there. So a little concerning, as there's more weather on the way.
Were you able to see what the damage was like to the two mobile homes that we
didn't see the mobile. We didn't see the mobile homes just yet. We just only saw the Big Boss gas station, and it looked like it was like the top of. I sent a video. I don't know if we can get it yet, but the top of, I guess, the awning that covers the gas pump, that looked like it was blown off or to the side. So, and one of the first responders told us that it was completely damaged.
Okay, so it sounds like the damage was pretty extensive to that gas station, and not just minor exterior damage, that it was pretty extensive there. And then we did get the report of the two mobile homes as well. So definitely from what you could see, there was some type of damage. It'll be assessed probably tomorrow by the Weather Service, but it was extensive damage.
For sure, and there are, I mean, at least a dozen first responders out there, whether it's police and fire. Like there is a lot of activity and a lot of lights. And this is odd for me, but as we were driving in, there's like a pasture there. All of the cows were against the gate of the pasture, you know, it's almost as if they are kind of like trying to get out of there, like they're all herded together.
Almost like they
So I
knew
don't
it was
know.
happening or knew something was happening.
Exactly, exactly. It's very like eerie, but cool to see that they were all huddled together. Just something random and weird, but that's what's happening out here.
Whitney Miller, stay safe. We'll probably be talking to you fairly soon as well. Thank you so much. Whitney, our
For sure.
reporter anchor, was in the village of Tangipahoa, and as I said, she was kind of notifying those folks that there was another tornado headed their way. I've kind of highlighted it here. It's now moving away from a meet. So Roseland, you need to be in that tornado safe space right now as it is moving in your direction. Again, it looks like it's going to avoid a meet, but Roseland, then Arcola, Fluker, this is the area that we'll need to be watching this. And again, kind of following that trajectory, it could very well take it back over that same village of Tangipahoa, where, as we said, there are a lot of folks out there right now trying to help out in the recovery, cleanup. And they all need to be taking that, really they need to be doing what Whitney is doing and driving north. They need to go north 55 or 51 and try and get away from this. Again, if it were to follow this trajectory, going north toward Kentwood would probably be okay as of now, because going south really is not an option. And looking at the village of Tangipahoa, just to try and familiarize myself, they do have a few state highways. LA 1057, you also would be better off maybe heading east on 1057 or going west, maybe LA toward LA 440. You may also be better off going there. So you do have some options as to where you're going or where you could go. Right now, Kentwood probably okay, but that I'm saying probably and I'm saying okay because I am far from certain, just based upon where this tornado could track in the near future. Sometimes they do take you know, sudden shifts one way or another, and it's possible that, again, you just saw a new image come in here, so that little couplet is still showing up. Looks like it's almost over I-55 right now, so not quite to Roseland yet, but nearing I-55, then eventually toward 51. As far as, you know, hopeful where this could go, would be great is if it were to just completely weaken, but would be wonderful if it does avoid Tangipahoa, the village of Tangipahoa, where we already had the damage. And just kind of zooming in here along Chesbro, it could go in that direction once passing Fluker. So there are other little communities that will be impacted by this. A lot of it is more wooded. A lot of it is very, very rural. So we're not talking about huge populations as this tornado goes through, which sometimes is why we don't get necessarily a lot of reports of damage very quickly, because it may be that it's very limited in terms of the population, and we have to wait for emergency management to kind of get out there and assess it, or waiting for sometimes phone calls into emergency management to then respond, and then usually that information is relayed to either our newsroom or into the chat group that we have going with the National Weather Service office. But Roseland, definitely a community. There was a tornado there not too long ago. I remember sending, we had sent Mike McDaniel up there, and he was in Roseland after a tornado, or at least some wind damage had gone through there. So there is another small community that will be impacted by this tornado. It does look like it is almost over I-55 right now. So for folks in Roseland, from I-55 to 51, you need to be in that tornado safe space right now. As far, again, Amite, it looks like it is going to stay away from you. It looks like it's going to continue up to the north. So for the folks in Amite, while you're still under the warned area, really the threat for you is gone. And I'll switch back over, as I said, to the reflectivity. What we find is that this is at the very kind of southwestern, southern end of a cell, which has been very intense with rainfall. So for the folks kind of upstream, you're not going to see nor hear this as you're into what is very, very heavy rainfall right before the tornado strikes. So it's kind of in this almost dead area on radar as to where the tornado is. So it is very much not necessarily rain wrapped, but anyone within its path will not see or hear anything, because you're going to have that more intense rainfall as it approaches. So as you kind of watch this from the southwest toward the northeast, you're going to get the heavy rain, some lightning, and then the tornado itself. So you're not going to get that heads up that I think a lot of folks assume you're going to get with a tornado. You're not going to just see this one see this one coming. Waiting to see if they're indicating maybe a little cycling of the storm itself, because as you look at the latest in the velocities here, not showing up quite as apparent as it approaches Roseland. So either the storm itself is cycling, we'll see in another pass of the radar if that is the case, or if perhaps the storm is beginning to weaken, which would be fantastic news. That's really the best outcome that we could anticipate from this. But hopefully this is not just cycling, that maybe it is weakening. We've already seen it cycling, then it intensified a little bit more. And we can kind of look back at that. Just sometimes studying these, what they have done, studying their history, can give us a rough idea of what it may do in the near future. So what we're watching is what was a fairly well-defined couplet. Once it crossed the Parish line, still fairly well-defined. We started to see a little bit of a weakening of that. And, you know, actually the last several images here, you watch that the couplet just doesn't show up nearly as well-defined. So it may be that this is a trend that the storm itself is weakening. Now, don't get too excited, because we saw that earlier. Remember the storm that we cut away from and then came right back on because it had been weakening, but it didn't take much to see that rotation kind of kick back up and intensify once again. So at least in the near term, that seems to be better news, as it looks like it is crossing Roseland right now and basically maybe right on I-51, or if nothing else between 55 and 51. It may be that the broad rotation is still there, but the storm itself is starting to weaken. It could refire as it moves, but maybe keeping it more to the east of the village of Tangipahoa. So that would be great news, especially considering, not that we're wishing this upon anyone else in the vicinity, but considering how many people there are outside assisting in the damage. And as our own Whitney Miller said, there were a lot of folks out there with a lot of lights, and police lights and lights to kind of help in the cleanup. There were a lot of folks outside assisting in the cleanup. So it would be fantastic. It'd be great if it just continues to weaken, but also if this were to take maybe a trajectory keeping it a little bit more to the east of Tangipahoa, where they had already had just a couple of hours ago a confirmed tornado. So what I'm hoping, and you saw a new image come in there as well, and it again continues to show, while you do have the bright colors where the winds are moving away, we're not really seeing the winds moving back towards. So still has some strong winds. And again, strong winds, tornadoes, doesn't really matter what does the damage. Damage is damage. But it does look like that maybe, as we had yet another image of the radar come in from the velocities, that it has been showing signs of gradual weakening, and hopefully that is a trend which continues. Now, we did get just, they're going to continue the warning, as really this is a warning that only continues for the next 9 minutes or so. This will expire at 8 o'clock. So the thunderstorm cell capable of producing a tornado was located over Roseland, near Amite, but it's moved north of Amite now, northeast at about 35 miles an hour. So again, what looks to be the case is that the Weather Service is just going to let this one kind of ride out, as while it does look like it is, for the most part, falling apart. They'll probably continue to monitor this until it's moved out of the warned area. May see kind of what we saw earlier, perhaps a new severe thunderstorm warning to kind of cover this as it moves then into Mississippi. This is, by the way, we always talk about these warnings that continues for Pike, Walthall, and while that is outside of our WWL-TV viewing area, that is still within the warning area for our National Weather Service office out of Slidell. So they include those northern counties north of the state line, even though that has moved out of our viewing area, which is why sometimes you may hear us reference Pike, Walthall with warnings. It's out of our viewing area, but it is still in the warned area for our National Weather Service office. Same for Baton Rouge. They include Baton Rouge. That's not our viewing area. But as far as this storm goes, it does appear as though that this is beginning to weaken. And I tell you what, since it's only going to be another 8 minutes, yeah, what the Weather Service is saying, the storm near Roseland now is showing signs of weakening. It is showing signs of becoming more disorganized, but as we've already seen just in the last couple of hours, to not let your guard down. So certainly good news with the storm itself is, at least based on radar, it doesn't appear as though there is any longer a tornado, but that doesn't mean that one won't quickly fire up from what has had a history of showing that fairly well organized rotation. So we'll kind of let this go for the next couple of frames here for the next, say, 7 minutes or so, and allow this warning to expire. And then obviously we will continue to cut into programming if and when necessary. Through the rest of the night, it looks like we will probably be doing our 10 o'clock newscast, hopefully fairly normal, as long as we don't see anything else popping up. But really the focus then will be on the line itself, which, as I said, is moving at a decent clip. It's already now in the western Florida parishes, already moving into Lafayette. So from Ville Platte, Alexandria, western Louisiana, you're done. The severe threat is gone. It'll be once that leading edge of the storms passes on through, then your severe risk is immediately dropped. We're looking at anything ahead of that line for risk of severe weather. And as I'd alluded to earlier, sometimes the computer models do a fantastic job of these, and other times, maybe not so much, as the models never really indicated a great deal of development ahead of the line. All of the models over the last couple of days, and even as of earlier this afternoon, indicating it would be more of just a solid line of storms without very much out ahead. Well, that obviously was not the case. We saw a great deal of rain and storms well ahead of the frontal boundary. So this has been a far more active boundary than the models had anticipated. Once the line is through, and we've been getting a rough idea of that timing, we will be done with the severe risk. But until that time, we will continue to watch these potential spin-up tornadoes and the gusty winds within some of the more severe thunderstorms. Again, a new image in on the velocities. We're starting to see a gradual weakening of this storm. We're not seeing those velocities show up. So I would likely, what we will likely see is that at 8 o'clock, this warning will expire. We might see a new warning perhaps for a severe thunderstorm with the mention of a possible tornado, but we will likely see this warning expire as that continues northward. And you know what, while we're here and monitoring these storms, we'll kind of go back onto our velocities and see if there's anything else showing up with any potential rotation. And, you know, as of right now, nothing, but clearly this has been a little bit more of a hotbed of the storms that as they move into this region, they become a little bit more conducive for rotation. And as we kind of wind down on this one, Whitney Miller is on the road. Whitney, do you know if you're taking I-55 or Highway 51 as you move up toward Kentwood?
I took 55. I'm in Kentwood now,
Okay.
And I'm actually at a gas station, just sitting here waiting it out. I've been watching you. It's actually really good to watch you because I know how to get out of the danger. So
Right.
I'm glad.
And you are in good shape. You are in good shape. It looks like it's going to stay east of Kentwood. It looks like it stayed east of Tangipahoa where you were. So for all of those folks that were outside assisting in the recovery cleanup, it looks like they were okay. They're getting in on some intense rainfall, but the severe threat looks to be moving away from them.
Right, and as we were headed north, it did start to like come down a little bit in terms of rain, but then the rain has kind of slowed down a little bit here. But yeah, we're under a gas station canopy right now. Me and Russell.
Gusty winds. Anything what the conditions are like there right now?
The wind right now, the winds seem fine. They're not gusty, and I do notice that the traffic lights are they're in the position of just, when they just blink yellow for you to just travel slowly. And so people seem to be making their way through town just fine. In Kentwood, I will say when we were in Tangipahoa, it was, the one road, 440, was just packed with law enforcement and first responders who were there trying to assist with the Big Boss gas station. So it wasn't much traveling happening through there. But once we got back on 55, it was fine. No backups or anything. And the wind wasn't bad, and the rain did pick up for a little bit, but it seemed to slow down a little bit now.
That's all good news. And to kind of update you as you're in Kentwood, toward Tangipahoa, the village of Tangipahoa, along 440, it does look like what little rotation had been there, what could have easily been a tornado earlier, doesn't look like that is the case any longer, and it is moving away from Tangipahoa. So good news for what seems to be, based on your description, a lot of emergency management folks out there and first responders trying to help up in the cleanup and just general assessment of the damage from the earlier tornado, that at least this one looks like it has avoided them. Again, we've still got a long night to go, and there will be more of these, unfortunately, but as long as we can avoid areas that we've already been hit and people are outside at risk, that at least they can have some comfort in knowing that it's staying away from them. Okay, and Whitney, I hope you stay safe. You're up in Kentwood. I'm sure she'll be headed back to Tangipahoa shortly, and I'll switch back over to the reflectivity. Weather Service has just updated that they're going to let that tornado warning expire at the top of the hour, so the risk from that one is gone. Where Whitney is up in Kentwood, she was on 55, so she's probably right about here. She said she was stopped at a gas station. Things were rainy, windy, but bearable, and again, good news for Tangipahoa, the again, village of where we had the earlier damage. And from what Whitney said, a lot of folks out there, first responders, emergency management officials, kind of doing the initial assessment and beginning helping out, cleaning up. Again, we had a report of 2 mobile homes. No reports of any injuries, but there was a family in one of those mobile homes. They were able to get that family out, thankfully. Didn't sound like we had any issues with that, but thankfully what looked to have been Okay, we're also joined by Robbie Miller, Parish President of Tangipahoa. Thank you so much for joining us. Can you tell us, are you in Tangipahoa right now?
I'm not quite, I understood you because I'm in the middle of a bunch of people and activity, but we're in the village of Tangipahoa, which is at mile marker 53 on I-55. To the east of that, there's the Tangipahoa Road. It's the old Highway 51. It goes north and south. The tornado seems to have hit right here. There's a store called the Big Boss Express that got hit pretty bad where it started, and for the most part proceeded due north up the Tangipahoa Road. We've had several structures, mobile homes, buildings, churches, from moderate to completely destroyed. Thankfully, so far, and we believe we found anybody that was injured, 2 minor to maybe a little bit worse than minor injuries. One of the mobile homes, the mother was in the home with them with 2 small children. The children were fine. The mother's fine. We did transport them to the hospital just to check them out to make sure, since they were babies and one of them was a baby and couldn't really communicate, if they have anything wrong or not, just because they're infants. One of them was. So we have a huge contingency of first responders, fire, law enforcement, coming out to start gridding out with a grid of the village to make sure that we didn't miss anyone. It's dark, lights are out, trees are down, power lines are down. Pretty good hit that the village got.
And as far as you know, those are the only injuries as of so far, and all what you said is seemingly minor.
Right. That's so far, yes. But I'm watching the first responders put their plan together. They've been putting it together, but it looks like they're actually starting to head out through the village with chainsaws and lighting equipment to go door to door for anybody that might have been overlooked or not known about. So look, I got to give our first responders big props. They got here very quickly, and they're mobilizing from Hammond, Ponchatoula, up in Kentwood. Everybody that has fire department is here. All the law enforcement throughout the parish is here, and they're all getting ready to move out through this area in the dark with power lines down, trees down, and do what it takes to get to all of the the structures and see if we missed anyone. We're hopeful and believe that we're okay. That the damage was pretty much on the street that we could get to and see already. But obviously, we're not gonna just sit on that. We're gonna go look and make sure we find anybody that has any trouble.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, and good luck with that. And just again, give you and all the folks out there the heads up that we're not done with this. We've still got several hours before the main line of storms clears the area. So there may still be more pop-up tornadoes in your area and elsewhere in southeast Louisiana. So we're not done yet. So I hope you folks kind of keep it close to the cell phones to make sure that there are no more warnings issued for your area.
Yes, sir. way. That's what we're doing, and we thank you very much, and God bless. Appreciate you.
Thank you so much, President Robbie Miller from Tangipahoa Parish. So, you know, it sounds like the efforts there are pretty extensive. They've immediately gotten out there. He said gridding to where they kind of break down the village of Tangipahoa in a grid, and it sounds like people are searching those grids one at a time to make sure that everyone is accounted for. It does sound like there may have been some other injuries that hopeful weren't anything more than just minor, but he had mentioned younger children and a mother were all brought to hospitals just to give them an initial assessment, which hopefully, again, everything was okay. But as we said, if you are in a mobile home, that is not where you want to be with these events. Please, if you are in a mobile home, in some of these more rural areas, have somewhere that you can go. And so when the warning is issued, thankfully we have been getting a generally long range in effect warning, so a bit more of a heads up than as opposed to this is right on top of you right now. We are giving a little bit more of a heads up with these storms so far to where you hopefully do have some time to get out of that mobile home into a more secure structure. Right now, as I said, the last warning for Tangipahoa has expired. We did not even see a new severe thunderstorm warning issued for that. So at the moment, things are quiet, but as you see on radar, we are far from done. The line, once this is clear, will be done, but it is not yet to Baton Rouge, so this will be ongoing through the rest of the night and likely for at least a couple of hours after midnight. So we will cut into programming if necessary. Hopefully, we'll only have to see you back here for Eyewitness News at 10. For now, I'm Chief Meteorologist Chris Franklin.
From WWL-TV's Eyewitness News, this has been your local weather expert.